It's on this display, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I've been looking on for some time, or thinking about for some time, about how I can do a black powder display on Living History. Well, I've done a little bit of research on this. Here's my boxes all in the way, I've left them out. This is an essential book. Look at the appendices at the back, where Baker, Moore and Muller, all their stats with regard to weights of ball during the English Civil War period are all contained in there, high and low. In other words, the most weighty musket balls and the lightest musket balls within specific calibers. All very interesting stuff. I'm hoping you can get a close-up of this, so I don't have to go into too much detail about it. But this is my summary of what you can find in that book. So you've got large muskets down here, you've got musket there, and then you've got calibers. You've got the bores, and then you've got the diameter of the bullets, excuse me, the approximate bullet weights, highs and lows in terms of the weights, like I said before, and then the scale weights that I've got from those. Half the weight of the bullet, this is what we know, so it's half the amount of powder required for the weight of the bullet. So it's that divided by 12 boxes and then 1/12 given away also to the touch box. That gives you the weight that should go into each powder box. And that's what we'll be weighing into our 17th century bandolier boxes. Now remember, of course, in the 17th century powder was going to be weighed. But in the modern times it isn't. It's done by volume. The reason why it's done by volume is because it's very consistent. In the 17th century I don't think it was really that consistent. There are various websites. No, there's one website and two book references, to be quite frank. I'll read them briefly. You can see them here in detail. The Art of Gunnery, Nathaniel Nye, 1647, and also I struggle with this one, halinitro-pybolia by Joseph Furtenbach in 1627. Very, very interesting books. You can find their information online. In fact, the Pedesoli website has got something about it as well. All about gunnery, the art of gunnery. It's about how powder was made, and it was really just pounded by planks mainly. But here's one very sophisticated version that I'd like to show you as well. It is a pounding technique, but it's not quite the same as by planks. So it's a bit like the old mousetrap board. Can you see the steam going in there? And then it's being pounded, so they're literally pounding the powder. Instead of complicated modern techniques, and in fact the Swiss chemist whose website I've shown here, a chap called Ulrich Bregster, he's got a black powder page, www.musketeer.ch/black powder/homemade _bp.html. He does some brilliant work on black powder. How to make it, how he makes it. He's made his own with a mortise and pestle, following the procedures that he thinks. He makes recommendations taken from the previous books that I've explained before about larch being used, for instance, you know, for the charcoal. All sorts of very interesting stuff in there, which I won't go into detail with. I'll let you look at those later. Other than the fact that it does describe different types of powder. Fine powder for fowling pieces, musket powder, and the very coarse powder, which is for cannons. Now, when you look into how those different powders are made, that's also described, but not in any sophisticated way. It's just the amount of time that the powder is pounded. And on one particular so-called machine, it's just got 6 planks of wood. Is it 6 or 4? They just go up and down and they're dropped on the powder. Boom, 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 boom. And it's pounded for 8 hours, 48 hours for instance, or even longer. And that defines whether the powder is for fowling pieces, etc. So please look that one up. Anyway, he talks about Swiss powder as one of the comparisons that he's making, which is marble, grinding down or pounding down on tons and tons of weight to produce the most sophisticated modern powder. In comparison to what I've just shown you now in one book and explained to you, or described to you rather, nowhere near that kind of quality, I don't think, in the 17th century. And we know that powder improved from the 16th to the 17th because of the amount of powder that was required in order to shoot the ball. We also know in the 18th century it became more refined as well. But all people in the know tell me these things. His homemade powder is 0.56 grams per milliliter, as opposed to over 1 gram per milliliter. Well, I've chosen some powder, and the powder that I've chosen is this. It's Javis Countryside Scenics. It's JS25. It's quite coarse, but it achieves somewhere between the two, between the type of powder that he was making and the very refined powder. Whoops, Oh dear, I'll show you those scales later, but they were in my way there for now. Here's another one that you can use. This is a much finer powder. They're all just railway scatter type powders that you can get. So different ones that you can play around with, whichever ones you feel more comfortable with rather. So what I'm going to do now is show you exactly what my powder is, or this powder rather, that I'm going to be using, is using that sort of the comparison between what he's come up with when he hand grinds it and what others have come up with. So what the Swiss people come up with, for instance. So if I find grams on here, at the moment we were on grains, so let's see if I can find grams. That's grams. Okay, so the best way to find the comparison is to tear that down, in other words get rid of that. So if I tear that to 0, so in other words it doesn't think there's any weight now in the pot. Let's call it, I just call them galley pots. I don't know what you call them or what they might be called now, but if I can get 10 mils in there, I find it very difficult to get 1 mil in anything, so if I get 10, I think you'll probably find that is approaching 10. It'll probably sort of knock down and get a little bit more in there, but if I weigh that now, you'll see that's 8.8. In other words, it's 0.88 grams. In other words, well, let's call it, shall we just call it 0.9? We're not too far off, are we really? So 10 grams is 8.8. Yeah, let's call 1 gram 0.89. So he's got 0.56, we got say 0.9, the sophisticated stuff is 1 point something, so we're somewhere kind of in the middle, aren't we? Yeah, it's an arbitrary figure, but the main thing is I'm demonstrating that we're somewhere between just grinding something in a mortise and pestle and then doing something in a sophisticated way. So that's why I've gone for this kind of powder, because it gives roughly the kind of compromise on weight by volume for those living history displays that I want to show, and this is the equipment that I'm going to be using to do that. Well, if I dispense with that powder now, because I no longer need that, and I go over to grains, because we know in the 17th century lots of things were measured in grains. The grain came from the Roman weight, which was basically a grain of barley, which was different from a grain of wheat. They didn't measure in barley, they just used that as the original sort of way of working out exactly what that very subtle weight was. So I'll just tear that one down at 0 for now, and then we'll sort that one out afterwards. Right, now what I've found is, looking at those particular weights that I showed you before, that there are weights associated, on average, I mean there is a big range, remember, in the weight here, 291 going all the way down to 178, which is a calibre. So the largest musket that Muller and Baker and Moore came up with really would have been in the scale weight of around about 291. Well, I've created one of those scales, one of those weights, I'm sorry, for my scales that you've got up there, and that's a 291. These weights are made in the same way that 18th century weights were still being made for goldsmiths, etc. You can still buy them now on eBay. They standardised them as brass in the 18th century. We're not using those. I just used, well, this is a gunmetal, which is a type of pewter, really, slightly different constitution. They're square, and they're cut, some of them pretty rough actually, from the ones I've seen, even the sophisticated ones, but the main thing is that the weight is right. This is a 291, which I've already said is the maximum size for the musket, as you can imagine. So there you go, that's on there. That obviously unbalances the weight. So if I now put my powder, which I've just demonstrated to you already, is between the handmade stuff and the more sophisticated stuff, and I create a balance, this is what I'll be doing on the living history display, or this is what I'll be asking to be done for me by perhaps the powder monkey who will be filling the bandolier boxes. Because as I said to you before, it's not by volume, it's really by weight. It's half the weight of the bullet that we want. And remember, it's not all in the charge box, some of it is in the touch box. So it's 1/12 of the weight, and then it is of the total weight of the ball, plus 1/12 given away for the touch box. Yeah, because the full half weight of the powder is going to include your priming charge as well. So filling this up, you can see that we're still pretty badly out at the moment. Oh, and I'm swinging now. I may well have gone over. Let's see if that is almost touching the centre now. Just a little bit more and I'll be there. In fact, I'll just pinch a couple of pieces in there, a couple of grains in there, let's call it, and we'll be there. Let me just test that now just to see how balanced that is. I think we're approaching the centre now, just a little bit more maybe. Recently I've been overfilling slightly too much when I've been practicing this, and I think it's because I'm concentrating more on talking than filling. So, okay, so we're round about the centre part now. I don't know if you're able to see that. I'll try twisting it round a little so you can get an idea of roughly where that is. It'll swing back to where it was because of where it's standing, so you might get a rough idea. Right, now, so if I take that off there, alright, okay, we now know that that is 291 in weight. So what we want to do is fill a powder box. I put a plug in it just in case I need the plug for any reason if I'm using it also to transport powder. Don't think I'll have to. Because all the Tower of London collection boxes were all sort of almost spot on the right size, particularly at the bottom, at the top there. In fact, I've seen them in Germany, I've seen them in America, I've seen them everywhere. In fact, I've made boxes for American museums and they're exactly the same as the ones that they found in box as well. They're very, very standardised, these. Well, I say very standardised, not like modern standards, but pretty damn close. Certainly the design is the same. But anyway, I've stepped it inside there so it fits pretty damn perfectly into there. All my boxes that I make will fit into there. So, there's a funnel, basically. You can leave that in, you can take it out. I don't need it on this occasion because of the way I'm filling. So 291 grains of powder now are going to be tipped into here. Now, this is what will be happening on the living history display. I'm sure my voice is going all bubbly now because I'm shaking this back and forth. Sometimes it's easier to use the plug actually because you can use the plug to help tip it in as well, you know, because the plug will just sort of like work it there a bit at the bottom. Okay, you see how that's all gone in there now? It's completely in there. No magic. Take that off and you can see how full that is. Bearing in mind we're going from a hand ground powder to a very sophisticated powder, somewhere in the middle, fits absolutely perfectly. I haven't contrived this. This is just something that's happened by accident, a very happy accident, because it shows the boxes that I'm making, that are replicas of those in the Tower collection, actually contain that amount of powder. And they did specify in the period, turned and not bored, and they were hollowed inside in this way. So I wonder if the reason why they were specifying that at the time was so that it could contain the maximum amount of powder for the largest musket that you could possibly have. In other words, I wonder if these are actually charges. I wonder if these are to take the maximum capacity. You could put smaller amounts in them if you want, smaller muskets in there if you want. So just as a double check for us, if I were now to put that into here, just to measure the amount of powder that's in there on the digital scale, we should get an idea. So if I tear that down again, oh, so it teared itself automatically down. So in other words, it's not showing the weight there of the pot. So if I put that in there, you can see that that is 292. Unfortunately, this measure for some reason doesn't seem to find ones. It goes to 290 or it goes to 292. But you can see there, using the weights that I've created in the way that they were made in the 17th century that we've seen, then you know it's pretty damned accurate, is that, isn't it? Now, one other thing about the weights and the accuracy of this, a wonderful chap's made this for me, a chap called Peter Trett, very, very talented man, and he's got this to an incredible degree of accuracy for me. You'll notice the scales. This is from the Book of Trades. These are 16th century ones. You can find medieval ones very similar. Even when I was a boy outside grocers' shops, these were hanging like this. I mean, this is something that's carried on up until sort of electricity and the digital age, really. So they really are pretty damned accurate things there. So, so that's the basis for the scales themselves. Well, they're so lovely, these scales, that I'm going to take them apart and show you how they fit in the box as well, because it's all part of the living history display. You'll notice the scoop's been made by me, the funnel's been made by me, the plug, etc. The boxes even are made by me. So it will be bandoliers that we're filling up on the living history display. So what will happen is the bandolier will come up empty, needing to be refilled by somebody, and of course it has to be done in this way, because you can't rely on volume. The powder that's produced, pounded in the way that it was, put into kegs and sent over sea, over waves, in rough ships, mishandled in harbours and things, it's going to settle out into different types of powder, even though they've decided it's one particular grade of powder. Sure, it's going to separate out. The only way to be absolutely sure is by weight, and of course we know that powder was dished out, you know, in terms of weight anyway. So I'll just show you how all this goes away, because it's a beautiful package that he's made for me, it really is. I'll just take these out of the way, pour that away so that it doesn't get in my way again, and put all this lovely piece of kit away that he's made for me. So like I said, these are the weights that I've made. They'll go in there. There is a cord you might have seen as well, that's just in case it needs to hang a little lower. This is my countermeasure. It's a weight, basically the weight of the pot. Sometimes it's a little bit out, so I just alter it with little bits of wood or bits of splinters like this. I mean, these are like you know, matches with no sulphur on, aren't they, really? You know, so a bit like pre-sulphur sticks, I suppose. So I put those down there and take this apart. Now, like I said, it is a rather lovely thing. I'll take that off there. I'll take that out of there, that out of there, and that out of there. And this one goes on the right-hand side, simply because I like some order. And so I'll put that on the right-hand side for now. It's going to have to come out again in a minute, but take that one off there. And this out of here, this out of here, this out of here, and then this one into there. That one can go on that side so I know where it comes from. And then this, and you could see if you looked in that book of trades there exactly how these were made. You'll see him making one of these, and it really is such a lovely, accurate thing. It really is. It's just catching a little bit there because it's not totally in the middle, but you can see there how very, very well balanced that is. So that fits nicely into here. He's done a brilliant design for me, Peter Trett, the chap who made it for me. He made some brilliant precision things for me that I really couldn't have got elsewhere, and I can only think it's because he's been a very, very good friend to me. So this, you can see, drops as I pick it up there and fits very nicely into this little slot here as well. So I'll put that into there, but before I do that, let's just get rid of these in here as well, my weights. And I'll put my counterweight in there as well, all part of my display. These little ones as well, why not? So they're out of the way. And then just put that around there because it's, well, why not? It's out of the way, isn't it? Now, that slots nicely into there. And then this, the lid, and you can see how lovely this is, isn't it nice? I don't need those for you there. Fits onto there. Well, here you have now my display. As you can see, the powder I've got here is in a tin box. That's not going to stay in there, of course. That's going to be a leather bag because we found out they were in leather bags. Mainly to stop the moisture. Once you open the bag, it's like unsealing something, and the moisture gets in and the weight of your powder changes as well. So it's really, really important you get them in small bags, I think, that are just then just unstitched. You know, so it's almost like a welting, perhaps, like you get on a shoe. I really don't know. I hope you think that will make a really nice display. I do. I really hope so. Just imagine the gunpowder leather bags with the you know, sort of some kind of an overhang and stuff, and soldiers bringing their empty bandoliers to you to be refilled in the way that I've just shown you now. It has to be a lot more efficient than I've just shown you now. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Please leave comments. You're very welcome. It's all experimental. We're in a process of trying to find out what actually happened. Who knows how those bandoliers were refilled in that situation? This is a possibility. Thanks again.